In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I refer to as sidewalk weeds. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 common edible weeds, how to identify them, and why I think it's so important that you familiarize yourself with them too. My interest in foraging was first sparked by me reflecting on my 2 favorite hobbies, which are backcountry camping and hiking. When I'm doing these things, I'm almost always in an area that's secluded. So I kind of thought to myself one day, what would happen if I got seriously injured and I wasn't able to make my way out? Or if I got lost and I had to rely on food from the woods to sustain myself? Would I have the knowledge to know what was safe to eat in order to survive? And the answer was no. So that's when I started to learn about foraging and started understanding why it was so vitally important to be able to carry that knowledge with me. Because knowing what you can and cannot eat when you're in the woods can literally make or break whether you survive or you don't. And the very first plants that I started learning about were these sidewalk weeds, because they're pretty easy to identify and they're literally everywhere. So I didn't have to go very far when I was studying these plant specimens to help me learn. These are all fantastic for beginners, so if you are new to foraging, I encourage you to start here. These weeds are all excellent because they grow in abundance, they're high in nutritional value, and the best part about them is that they don't have to be cooked. You can eat all of these things raw. Let's imagine a scenario. You're lost in the woods and you're in dire need of food. Wild mushrooms are probably far more filling than weeds and probably just as abundant. However, almost all wild mushrooms need to be cooked before they're consumed. So even if you are able to find an abundance of wild mushrooms and you're confident that you've ID'd them as an edible species, unless you're able to actually start a fire and cook them, you're not actually going to be able to eat them. So they're going to be no good to you. But these common edible weeds do not have to be cooked before consumption and can be eaten totally raw. So all you would have to do is find them, pick them, and eat them. It's as simple as that. The first weed that we're going to talk about today is called plantain. There are 2 different types of plantain. There's broadleaf plantain and narrow leaf plantain. Both are perfectly edible, but in this video today, I'm only going to be talking about broadleaf plantain. Broadleaf plantain have oval-shaped leaves with parallel veins that stem from the base of the leaf, running all the way up to the tip of the leaf. The leaves are smooth and can sometimes be a bit leathery, and they're arranged in what's called a basal rosette. So not basil as in the herb, but basil as in B-A-S-A-L. Some of you might be wondering what a basal rosette is. All that refers to are plants that typically grow low to the ground where the leaves are arranged in a circular-like pattern. Broadleaf plantain also eventually grow a stalk that is sort of centered in the middle of the rosette, and that stalk will produce tiny little white flowers. This one specifically hasn't flowered yet, but it's on its way. Broadleaf plantain is extremely nutritious, being super high in vitamins A, C, and K, and also calcium. The next weed we're going to talk about is called Black Medic. Black Medic has flowers with teeny tiny little yellow petals. They have small green leaves that are in groups of 3, and they also have a seed pod that stems off of the stalk. A lot of people don't understand where Black Medic got its name from because it has yellow flowers and green stems. A lot of people don't know where the black in the name came from. So the reason why it's called Black Medic is because the seed pods that protrude off the stem eventually turn black. And that's how it got the name Black Medic. Black Medic is absolutely packed with protein and fiber. So per about 100 grams of Black Medic, you get 23 grams of protein and 25 grams of fiber. And although Black Medic tastes pretty bitter and kind of unpleasant, if you are in a dire situation, the protein and fiber content alone are enough to make you want to eat it. Black Medic looks very similar to pineapple weed when you're looking down at them. Black Medic and pineapple weed typically grow in the same areas, and that's going to be the next weed that we talk about. So now we're going to talk about pineapple weed. Pineapple weed is also referred to as wild chamomile. Pineapple weed has yellow flowers that are dome-shaped, and they kind of resemble miniature pineapples in a way. They also have green leaves that are a little bit spiky looking, and when you crush the leaves with your fingers, it gives off a slight pineapple aroma. The pineapple scent, paired with how the weed looks in general, is how the pineapple weed got its name. Pineapple weed is in the daisy family, and you can actually see how similar this young daisy plant looks to pineapple weed. Pineapple weed doesn't have a significant source of vitamins and minerals. However, it does aid with digestion, it can help you sleep, it can help relieve stress, and it also works as a very effective insect repellent. Next, we're going to be talking about red and white clover. Red clover sports these beautiful, vibrant pink flowers and typically grow taller, whereas white clover grows closer to the ground and they have white to light pinkish flowers. The leaves of the clovers grow in sets of 3, and they're easy to identify because of the white arrow shape on each leaf. Sometimes this arrow shape can be a little bit subtle or it can be very well defined. You do want to be very careful with clover because clover does actually have a toxic lookalike called alsike. Alsike looks extremely similar to clover, but the big key difference is that alsike will not have those white or light green arrows on the leaves, and clover will. So observing the leaves of the clover is vitally important if you're IDing for the purpose of consumption. You absolutely do not want to mistake alsike for clover. Clover are nutrient-filled powerhouses. They're a significant source of vitamin K and iron and absolutely packed with digestible protein. They're also a very good source of vitamin C. If you are lost and you need to eat something, you want to eat these. Not only are they great for you health-wise, but they also taste pretty good too. When I was a little kid, I used to pull off the petals and suck on them because they were so sweet. Next, we're going to talk about wood sorrel. The flowers on wood sorrel can vary in color depending on which specific species you have. The ones that are most common in my area are yellow. So in this case here, they have yellow flowers, usually with 5 petals, and they have heart-shaped leaves in sets of 3. A lot of people confuse wood sorrel for clover because in a lot of traditional cartoons, clover was depicted as having these heart-shaped leaves, when in reality, wood sorrel has the heart-shaped leaves, and clovers have the round leaves with the white arrows. Wood sorrel is described as having a very distinct taste, often described as very lemon-like, and can be used in a variety of dishes in the place of lemon to give it sort of that lemony-like flavor. Wood sorrel also folds up its leaves, which is a response to the different changes of light. Wood sorrel is very high in vitamins A and C, as well as magnesium, potassium, calcium. They have fiber and they have antioxidants. Next, we're going to talk about purslane. Purslane is a low-growing plant that can be identified by its red, succulent-like stem, as well as its green, succulent-like leaves. The leaves are green, often alternate with each other, and sometimes they can have a reddish tinge to them as well. Purslane will eventually grow tiny little yellow flowers with 5 petals on them. You have to be very careful with purslane because purslane does have a toxic lookalike called spurge. The big key difference is that spurge has a milky sap inside, so when you cut the plant, the milky sap will be present in the toxic lookalike, but purslane does not have that milky sap. Purslane is described to have a nice peppery-like flavor and often compared to the flavor of watercress. The last weed that we're going to talk about today are dandelions. Dandelions are another one of those weeds that have amazing nutritional benefits. They're a significant source of vitamins A, C, and K, and they're also loaded with iron, calcium, and potassium. Dandelion leaves are also arranged in a basal rosette, so the leaves radiate around the base of the plant. The leaves are deeply toothed. Some dandelion lookalikes that you see have multiple yellow flowers on them. True dandelions only have one single yellow flower. The stem is also hollow and contains a milky sap. Dandelions are also the most widely available edible weed on the entire planet. The reason why I refer to these weeds as sidewalk weeds is because they typically grow in areas with poor soil conditions, such as in between the cracks of sidewalks or on gravel driveways. Even though they usually are more abundant in areas like this, you shouldn't technically be consuming wild edibles that are found in these locations, only because there's a high potential for more pollution, as well as pesticides and herbicides. You want to be 100% positive that you're not consuming anything that has been touched with chemicals like this. You don't want to put those chemicals in your body. So only pick these weeds if you know it's a safe area. It's also important to note that some of these weeds should only be eaten in moderation, so you really want to make sure that you do some additional research before eating these. A lot of people don't like these weeds because they might not look the most beautiful when they're covering your driveway or in your garden when you're trying to grow a whole bunch of vegetables, but I think that people should look at it differently and see them as bonus vegetables. Instead of pulling them out and putting them in your compost, we should be eating these. They have such a high nutritional value, there's really no reason not to. So eat the dandelions, eat the purslane, eat the broadleaf plantain. It's basically a win-win because it's very nutritious for your body and it grew for free, so you really can't go wrong. Normally at the end of my videos, I make some sort of meal with my finds. I'm not going to do that in today's video for a couple of reasons. The first reason being that the purpose of this video is to show you what you can eat in a dire situation. And if you're in a dire situation, you're most likely not going to be cooking a meal. You're going to be eating what you can find as you go. And the second reason is when I'm using these weeds personally, I'm usually only throwing the greens in a salad or I'm making a tea, and I don't feel like there really needs to be a whole video about how to steep a tea or how to mix a salad. If you're planning on eating these weeds just for the health benefits and you're not in a dire situation, my recommendation to you would be to blanch these before you eat them. They're a lot more palatable and digestible when they're cooked a little bit. However, cooking these weeds does cut the nutritional benefits for some of these plants almost by half. So if you are going to cook them before you consume them and you still want all of those nutritional benefits, all the vitamins and minerals and such, you're going to want to make sure that you just drink that water. The water will still contain all of those vitamins and minerals that leached out of the plants. So if you drink the water or you mix it into a smoothie or something, you're still getting all of those nutritional benefits. I encourage you to take this information, go out for a walk in your neighborhood and see how many of these weeds you can spot. Let me know in the comments if you've tried these weeds before. I'd love to know which one's your favorite.